Hello everyone, today we will share the Lite 2R and Lite 2S light meters, some differences between them, and some of my experience in using them. The difference between Lite 2R and 2S is that the 2S can install this viewfinder, which can be removed. The main difference is that there is a groove on the side, which has a groove here. This groove can be used to install the exposure viewfinder. After installing the viewfinder, and it will be stuck on like this, and then install it directly. Some friends may ask, what if I don't have a Leica? The top of my camera? It may not be so flat. I have encountered this situation for my camera. Its rewind button will be higher than the shoe mount. Normally, it can be installed here. It will be stuck in the viewfinder. The light meter is at a 30-degree angle, which is a large right angle. You can remove the light meter viewfinder and don't use the viewfinder and use it as a 2R. Just install it directly. It won't get stuck on the rewind button and it can be installed normally. But it still gets stuck a little bit. We can adjust the boot seat to the middle position. How to adjust it? We use a screwdriver to move the shoe mount to the middle position. Let's use the screw first, and then move it to the middle position, and refix the screws. In this way, the shoe mount is moved to the middle position. It moves from the left to the middle. Then we can directly install the light meter. That's it! It won't block the light anymore. After installing it in the middle, the light meter's light measuring lens and the camera lens, there will be no such a big deviation. Their light axis will be closer. Theoretically, the accuracy of metering will be higher. Use this viewfinder to align with your light meter. Align the subject. You need to measure light with the subject. Press it. Then you will get the exposure parameters. This 2R version doesn't have a viewfinder interface. After it is installed on the camera, you need to align it through the camera's viewfinder. Or just aim at it like this and press it. The disadvantage is that it may not be easy to align with the subject because the light meter, its lens has a metering angle. It only measures the range approximately. With a viewfinder, it can constrain the range of your viewfinder. You can know from the viewfinder. You can roughly know where the metering range is. Without a viewfinder, you can't know the exact measurement position. They both have the same software. Both are controlled by the dial, this light meter, and the button to measure the light. They both have the same way of turning on. The only difference is the viewfinder. There is no difference in battery life. It's charged by USB. Now let's talk about how to use this light meter. The ISO of the light meter is the same as the ISO of the film in the camera, should be set to the same. Suppose we are using ISO 200 film now. You need to long press the dial, move the cursor to ISO, and set it to 200. We long press the dial. After the cursor is here, we adjust it to 200 ISO 200. And then, we are now using aperture priority mode to set the light meter. To measure the light, the maximum aperture of the lens is f3.5. I want to use the f3.5 aperture to shoot the subject. Now we set the mode to aperture priority. Press the dial, and the cursor moves to the aperture. Set the aperture to f3.5. At this time, the shutter value is the shutter value of the last metering. We now need to measure the light of this dial. We just aim at the dial, and the lens is aligned with the position of the dial. To measure the light, press the metering button. A red light will flash here. The metering result is 1/13 second. Some beginners may not understand. How can I set the camera to 1/13 second? Because my camera doesn't have 1/13 second. In fact, we can use adjacent shutter speed values. The adjacent shutter speeds are 1/13 or 1/15 second. At this time, we want the subject to be brighter, because we're using negative film. His dynamic range for highlights is relatively high, so we can set the dial to 1/8 second. In this case, we may overexpose by 1/3 stop or 2/3 stop, which is no problem for film. If you want the subject to be darker, we can adjust it to 1/15 second, then use the camera's viewfinder to frame the subject. Then focus forward, and then take the photo. Taking a photo is that simple. Let me share how to use the light meter. Attach the light meter to the camera. Many beginners may not know how to use it. Choose a priority mode, such as aperture priority or shutter priority. Aperture priority means we adjust the aperture and the shutter speed, and the shutter speed changes. How to adjust aperture priority? This dial can be pressed down. After pressing it, you can adjust the selection box. The selected area is the selected mode. Now the selected value is the aperture, which is aperture priority. And the shutter speed changes according to the aperture. Suppose I choose f3.5. 1/2 is the correct exposure parameter. Then I set my lens to f3.5. Set my lens to f3.5. Set the shutter speed to 1/2 second. Then I can focus by winding the film, and then take a picture of the subject. Further usage is, you need to have a certain understanding of the overall exposure with some experience and compensate reasonably, or use this parameter. Shutter priority is the opposite. Adjust the frame to the shutter speed. That's it. The method is to just press it directly. You can press it repeatedly. It will jump back and forth between aperture and shutter. Move the frame to 1/2, and you can adjust the shutter speed here. When adjusting the shutter speed, the aperture will change automatically. Suppose we are indoors, set it to 115. Aim at the subject, press the metering button. The light turns on. It means the metering is completed. Now we need to use an aperture of f2.4. But our current lens doesn't have an aperture of f2.4. The maximum aperture is only f3.5. We have an 1/8. We can choose 1/8. Our lens doesn't have f3.2. That means when shooting the subject, it will be slightly underexposed. It should be 1/3 underexposed. It can also be taken, or we can slow down the shutter speed to 1/4 stop. We can use f4.5 to shoot. There is no f4.5 setting on the lens. We can adjust it between f4 and f5.6 to the position between 4 and 5.6. Then use this exposure parameter to shoot the subject, and we can achieve the correct exposure. It can be used single and automatic metering. How to switch? Single exposure means pressing once on the subject after it measures once. After measuring the light once, its exposure parameters will not change again unless you press it on another place. You press it once when you need to measure the light. What if you needed to keep measuring light? Long press the metering button. It defaults to turning off. It means that pressing it again will turn it off. Don't need to turn off. What if I need to choose that? What about automatic metering? We just long press. Use the dial to turn here. It will show continuous trigger metering. We select continuous trigger metering. Press the exposure button or press the dial. Let's press the dial this time. Press the dial, and it will change from as to see here. Then we press directly on the subject. It will keep metering. And you don't need to press it manually every time. The metering button is suitable for shooting while walking. How to turn off this mode? You press the metering button. It will stop metering. If it stops, it will lock the last measured exposure. How can we change it back? The same method. Long press the metering button and move it here. Select single trigger metering. Then we press the subject. It won't trigger continuously. There is also an average metering. What does average metering mean? It will, take the lens, average brightness of the scene it passes through, and record all of them. How to use it? Suppose these two subjects are the light I need to measure, but the range of these two subjects have a large range. For example, when shooting landscapes, the range is relatively large. What if I want to measure the light of these two subjects? We have just selected this. We choose average metering. Then press the metering button. Then move it over. And press again. It will record all the light in this path. And record it all. Then average it. And get a result of f1.2, 1/40. Without this f1.2 aperture value, we can adjust it to f3.5. If we take photos with this exposure combination, we will get both images, a result of normal exposure. This light meter. There is also a setting. How to use the digital depth of field scale. We need to set the focal length and frame size of our camera. The default is full frame. That's a full frame size of 35mm. But we are using a 50mm lens now. Then we need to modify it by long pressing the dial. It will enter the ISO adjustment mode. Long press to enter ISO. Then we press this button here. It will enter this setting. Select the lens outside. Then select the full frame. Then we select 35mm. Use the dial to adjust it to 50mm. It's now 50mm. Now press the metering button directly and return to the metering interface. Here you can see that it has been changed to 50mm. At this time, the lens focal length of the meter has matched the camera's lens focal length. The front and rear depth of field on both sides has matched the camera's lens focal length. The current depth of field range. How to change the focus distance now? Pressing the dial, don't let go, and rotate the dial. How to use this? I only need the front and rear depth of field, and the back depth of field is clear. Suppose there is a subject behind, and I don't need it to be clear. I want to blur it. This width is about 3 centimeters. The closest focusing distance of our lens is 1 meter. Then we set this. Now we set it to 1 meter. Its depth of field range is from 0.95 meters to 1.05 meters, which is 10 centimeters apart. When I focus on the style now, the depth of field is 10 centimeters in front and back. It can be covered clearly. The depth of field behind is completely blurred. So I use these parameters to focus and shoot with the parameters of 1 meter. Then I will get the result I want. Some people may ask, why don't I use the depth of field scale on the top, the depth of field scale on the lens? On the depth of field scale, it can't show the exact distance. It can only show a rough distance. When I'm accurate to 10 centimeters or 20 centimeters, it can be used. For SLR cameras, actually, through the viewfinder, you can also see the depth of field of the doll. But if you use a rangefinder, you can see the depth of field preview. The viewfinder has a fixed depth of field.
Nice.